Greetings, dear viewers, and welcome to another live conversation about creative society. We have a very special guest today, but before we start, I would like to tell you, if you are watching us for the first time, that we conduct interviews and social surveys within the framework of the project Creative Society. Creative Society is a global project launched by ALLATRA International Public Movement, and this project is being implemented in more than 180 countries all over the world. And the goal of the project is to build a creative society. Creative society is a society where we all live happily, prosperously, in love, in respect. It's an evolutionary stage of our society. And I'm very happy to introduce our guest today. This is Phillip Sparks. Phillip, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
And Phillip is a very interesting person, and I would like to ask you, what motivates you in life? Can you share your story with our viewers, please?
Yeah, I think what motivates me are several different things. The key motivations are growth and contribution right now. Of course, everybody goes through different phases where their motivations are separate, but I've always, since about age 12, been very fascinated with the spirit, how the spirit works, how people believe in themselves, what they are versus what they believe they are. But just like with every other society, I went through this phase of what works for society. So where I was reading the encyclopedia and dictionary at age 12, and a very interesting book called Cybernetics, written by a doctor who was a surgeon, or a plastic surgeon. And his study was really, women are not doing surgery to look good. They're doing it to fix something that they think is a flaw inside of them. So at age 12, it's, very heavy for a small child at that point. And put in that, I grew up in a family. I'm the youngest of 10 kids, so 12 people in the family. 7 of them are sisters, so I learned a lot about feminine energy up through there. And my mom was one of the first deacons of the Roman Catholic Church. So I grew up with a understanding of the spirituality, but on the other side with my father, he was an alcoholic. So I also saw the balance of where spirituality can help a family and where bad social issues can destroy. So after that, I started to say, what is my way out? And it was education. Very, very much read, find out, how can you go to the next place? So, and I have a lot of education. So I became a liberal arts with physics degree. I then became electrical engineering, and then I became a master's in software engineering, telecommunications engineering. I then migrated into IT and have a master's in IT, a master's in business administration, and then also public administration. So,
wow.
And getting ready to start on a PhD with integrative medicine to say, how do we build all of this psychology and medicine, pharma, and put it all to place. So that's a quick, everything is coming around. And I think in a storyline, you go through different parts of the story and you gain experiences and you realize about yourself. So I needed to get the education. I didn't have any money coming from a poor family. So I went to the military and got an ROTC scholarship. And I remember one of the key facts was my girlfriend at the time said, okay, you're average on grades. You'll never be able to get a scholarship. So I put my mind to it and got straight A's for 3 years and got a scholarship. And it's really the psychology of it is when you believe in yourself and you have a goal for what you really want to do, you can obtain it. And I did that, So it's good. Military gave me a lot of wisdom that a lot of people don't get. I was a signal officer, so a lot of the technology that we use now, we were still in research. So we were still using analog. And then I was transitioning from analog to digital, so we would now And, you see these on old movies. The ladies say, "Would you like to call?" and I'll put it in your patch in. We were still using those. Okay, and then we say, "No, now it needs to go onto the battlefield. We have to have it small. It has to go anywhere and everywhere." So my job was to really transition that and get it into, the new, what we call telecom right now. And I'm going, okay, well, that's good. What does that relate to psychology? And realize, as a commander, it's all about people. They're afraid. They have marital problems. They have family problems, but you're still asking them to do something. Mm-hmm. And I spent more of my time realizing, how do I develop these people? How do I get them to understand who they are so I can then use them in the best capacity so that they're feeling really good. So accumulation of that was the Desert Storm, so the first Gulf War, where we were out in the middle of the desert and saying, go and do this, and you see all kinds of psychology that is, you don't want to hear. Mm-hmm. You have these stories that, wives doing, unfaithful and then sending videos, and you go, wow, what is it about mankind that does this? So also the dilemma of research was cool with the military, but they're killing people, and you have to balance that. So I said, I'm going to leave. Still needed to make money and income, so I stayed as a contractor to help them, and realized what I was really trying to help is, how do they take people and get an easier life with information technology, with IT, and how do you make it more secure? So a lot of my jobs were really wide, with 6 countries, 2.3 million people over in the military at the time, and very, very large scale. So I never, even as a very, very young 22, 23-year-old exiting the military, worked on small projects. It was all really, really, really grandiose, across nations. And since we had 6 countries, I start to see all the different nationalities. And are the people the same? And we did Myers-Briggs assessments, and I even went into astrology and did a 6-month program of how do we identify personalities and what type are they? And no one wants to hear that the astrology and the 12 zodiacs are important, but my study showed that is more predictive of the nature, that somebody is born at a certain time, that I can predict how they're going to be 35 years later. So all of these kept building up. Okay? And then I did various jobs back and forth, and then I decided, okay, now it's time for me to give back. And this is where I founded Wheels of Humanity, which the goal is try to focus innovation in the creative mind, extract out the creative mind as a group and put more and better ideas together, and do things that are fundamental to society that we need: water, healthcare, education, energy, love, and security. And I
Absolutely.
had to try to find out what is love and security, because people don't really want to know. But I said, no, it is about love. It's not about just the libido, and it's not about sex and intimacy. There's a universal love that unites us, right? So everything that I want to do now is to do the large projects that I have, where we've had 700 universities getting together, when we're doing startups with, over 10,000 startups around the world, and saying, leverage that, get them to think, but focus them on one of these 6, so that they, as a human race, contribute to the solution that we need to do. And then not just for now and get money, but your generation, second generation, 52 years from now, are you leaving something, a creative idea, a creative change that will actually do that? So that's why I'm here in the UAE, started it here. It can be the Islamic golden age that you recreated a lot, because one of the healthcare is, I'm reading the canon of medicine. It's a very, very old, 1,000-year-old text of how we used to teach doctors. And it was used for 700 years to teach everybody. In 2014, it was finally translated into English. So I picked it up, started reading it, and everything that we do in terms of our health, we can be responsible for it, or a community can be responsible for it. And I've lived 10 years in the Middle East. I've lived 25 years in Europe. I've lived 20 years in the US. And I've seen all of this. I'm going, we as a society have said, you're too stupid to know medicine. You don't know your body. Go to a doctor, go to a pharmacist, go somewhere else. But we've never gotten back to, if I think about it, I know my body. I know my liver is not, and I know what I'm eating. I'm the best doctor. So the doctor is within, or somebody who knows me and can say, but Philip, you've been really eating chocolate a lot. Maybe that's the cause of you being imbalanced. So I really wanted to focus on how do you get the conscious mind, the creative mind, to help each other, as opposed to saying somebody else has that responsibility for me.
Oh, thank you so much. That's really a very powerful story. And I wanted to ask you the next question, what unites all of us, but you already gave an answer. And my question would be then, how important is to come to this unity of people? How important is to unite nowadays?
I think there's a systemic trend that people want to unite, but they're scared. One of the programs I do is called Unsafe to Safer, where safer is really the stress, anxiety, fear, expectations, and reconciliations that we don't do. We want to feel safer.
True.
But we're expecting somebody else to create that for us. Whereas the stress is inside. The anxiety is a manifestation of something that we're giving that signal out. The community should be able to see that and help us. And nothing against doctors who spend years, but the people who know us the best are around us. And this is that community, and this is what we need to unite, is to have that awareness and have that, I feel stressed. Oh, you know what? Go to a therapist. But you're my wife. I want to go to you. I want to go to my mom, my dad, and my family. And we're just told, go somewhere else. And so there's a big breakdown in the family and then the tribal, what we started off with tribal. And I think that's what's eventually the movement is, let's get back to that. We have digital tribes, but it's not the same. And we haven't quite been able to figure out how that resonates in the right way.
Absolutely. And do you have already your own understandings coming from your experience, how we can fix it?
Well, my years, I forgot. I also became a hypnotherapist and a chiropractor, which is alternative medicine and psychology. Working with traumatized and post-traumatic stress is when we can get back into a state of suggestibility, which we're comfortable, we're safe, and we're listening to suggestions of people, then that suggestion can work at our unconscious and tell us what we need to do. So since I've seen this work very, very well, and when you go back to when in humanity are we in this state, it's as a child. Children, they learn, they grow, they socialize, they work with each other. They have no biases until the caretakers, and it can be mother, father, extended family, or nannies, start to influence us. Now it's the TV. Now it's the mobile. It's everything else. And we're so bombarded. We're put into a state of hypnosis, suggestibility. And the next thing that comes off the TV, that's what we're going to latch onto. And that's what we see is reality, the truth, as opposed to what is it inside of us. We're just listening to the CNNs and the politicians or whoever says that is out there. So I think the easiest way is figure out how we can get each individual to reclaim themselves and then understand, I'm allowing myself to be suggestive, but I'm going to choose who I'm going to suggest things to. And if you can get a community where the message is good, it's clean, it's positive, whether or not it's religious in the Bible or the Quran or you go into the Vedas or anywhere, it has to be a good, clean message that changes, because we're going to be receptive, we're going to listen. We just need to listen to the right community, the right people.
Yeah, yes, exactly. That's very much important, and this is why of the main tasks of the project Creative Society is to ask everyone in the world what
Mm-hmm.
unites us.
Yeah.
This means to bring our attention to something which we have in common, and to forget to overcome everything what can divide us, anything what could make us enemies actually, and in the current condition, we always have something negative which could divide us. Even nowadays, we are facing the situation that people are separated into those who support vaccination and don't support vaccination.
Polarization,
It's
yeah.
a new trend. But we can always find something what unites us. And we conducted thousands of interviews, and we know that what unites us is that people want to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned, people want to live in love, in security, in prosperity, and they want to have a possibility to develop, to grow in a society. And this is what we have in common. Then how can we build it? So here we come to the project Creative Society. There we ask people in which society they would like to live, and of course your opinion is very much important. Can you please describe in which society you would like to live in? What is the concept of a creative society for you, as if you are an architect from the scratch?
If I'm going to put on my architect hat, and I have, because I've architected quite large projects, is you have to understand first, what is the foundation that you're going to start with? Because you can't architect something unless you have a foundation. Your 8 principles is, in essence, your foundation that you're starting to start with. But you also have the foundation of humanity. What is it to be a human? Which is it's hard for people because we've lost a lot of that knowledge of who are we. And then you have to start to figure out, okay, what are the different systems that you're putting on? So it's not just you're building a building, you're building an electrical foundation, you're building a wall foundation, you're putting in the watering, you're putting in the protection mechanisms and everything else. So it's breaking it up slightly into that. And if we take a look at consciousness, this is where I would see it's more of the electrical system. You're putting all of these neurons and other things that our body have, but you're now trying to say, how do we model that as a society? Social media. This is an extended neurons. We have the information field all around us, but we're not ready for it. We need a little screen that says, this is the information field. Tap into that. Get the people who are really already conscious and say, how do we do that? So I've developed a program called MIM, so Man in the Middle Marketing, that we use in the business school, but it's also the same motivating the people, influencing people, and even manipulating the people. Because manipulation isn't always a bad thing. If I'm stuck, if I'm blocked, or I have a client who's blocked, I have to get them unblocked. I can say, unblock yourself. Doesn't always work. I can try to find an influence that would get them to be unblocked, but a lot of times it's going to take a trick, a manipulation, that gets them out so then they can actually do things. So as an architect, you start to work on the different cultures that are out there, and I've studied all the different religions pretty extensively, and I have friends in all of them, and say, what is in this religion that can be influenced to get them? So you're building a Buddhist type of creation, then you're building an Islamic, and then you're building a Christianity or Orthodox. And you say, build them separately, but then what is the overall result? You want a single house of God or love, in state, but you're going to have individual ones. Too many times I have clients that they want everything, and they want it all the same way. And I'm going, it doesn't work. The best innovations I get is if I have 6 or 7 different people in different nationalities, different diversities, thinking. So the architects can be from each one as soon as they realize what is the commonality of Buddhism to here. In our discussion earlier on souls, everybody's going to have a different view. But that's eventually going to be a very foundational question. What is it to be a human? The environment that I would like is that I can have discussions with anybody who's at a table freely. You know, I may be an intellect. Somebody else might be an emotional person who can read vibes. You know, but one's not better than the other. It's just God or the creative force gave us the different functionalities, our different talents. How can we use these talents non-competing against each other, but value that? So the concept that I have is love is listening, not only to the words, but to what they have to say, their emotions, their culture. Understand that who am I, and then who are they, so you're understanding both sides, and then validate. And this is what I see in society. We don't validate the other person. We don't let them to be vulnerable. We say, you know, you're vulnerable, I'm going to use you, or you're vulnerable, you're too weak. And what we really want, I'm human, accept me. And then you have the empathy, and this is where I think the consciousness, if I can empathize with somebody, that means I'm not just thinking or feeling, I'm understanding you and the way that you think or the way that you feel in this particular situation, because it can change. Today to tomorrow, you can be a totally different person on the outside, but inside your soul, somewhere, when you were first born, that is who you are. You're just manifesting a certain response based upon your externals.
No, I like this concept. Really, I feel that when we can do it, we'll make a huge change in our society. And here I wanted also to touch the topic you mentioned. I know that you have read about the 8 foundations of the Creative Society, and you had the chance to go through the website alatrinites.com, and one of the foundations of the Creative Society, the 8th foundation, is about responsibility and self-governing of the society. And now we are at the stage that we are more accustomed to put responsibility on someone else than to be responsible ourselves. And what is your vision and understanding about the importance of responsibility of every member of the society towards himself or herself and towards the society as well?
Yeah, I think, and let me answer that in 2 ways. One, addressing directly with responsibility. And I always promote that responsibility as a term means the ability to respond. No matter what comes up, I've been entrusted that I can respond based upon who I am, my knowledge, my skills, resources that I have at hand.
By the way, yes, I never thought about
because it's really, you know, you have accountability and responsibility. Everybody said no one wants accountability. And then say, okay, but you're responsible. What does that mean? Well, that means I'm accountable. I go, no, it doesn't. It means I've entrusted you, given your position, given all the resources I've given you, to freely take whatever action you need to make it happen. So I've empowered you, the ability to respond to whatever. You don't have to come to me. I have this discussion a lot with COVID, because one of the think tanks I'm on is about COVID and the healthcare and the immune system. And I go, look, the American population is having such skyrocketing because the people have not taken responsibility for their health. Now, they say, no, the government should. No, the government is not responsible for your health. You have the ability to drink a tea, a very good herbal tea, or I can eat something, or I can exercise, or I don't exercise. And you can have all kinds of advisors telling you what you need to do, but you have the ability to respond based upon your situation any way you want. So I think first the individual has to realize that, you know, from a health, education, and everything. And if you look at a lot of the entrepreneurs who've made a lot of money, and even if they came from bad backgrounds like myself, it's just at some point when you've realized it's you with the ability to respond, then it becomes much easier. But then I think you actually have to take that into a family context, and the family can have the ability to respond to anything to keep the family unit together. And then you have the tribal, and then you can have, at later state, the church community, and then the government. But we don't do that. If you take a look at, you know, why do we not have people giving money? You know, in Islam you have a percentage, right? Same thing in Christianity, that you should give a certain amount of money that you have into helping others. But why not just help the others? Why do we need all the taxes and the government coming up and trying to do the same thing that humanity could have been doing from a spiritual place in the first place? And so I think from a responsibility, it is that. It's just focusing on you accept that you have the ability, and if you don't, ask. And if you don't, then the family can help you. And if the family can't help you, the community can help you. But I think in terms of number 8 is also about governance. Right? So one of my specialties with cybersecurity was what we call GRC, governance, risk management, and compliance. And what I learned with governance is people want to govern you by controlling you. And you have to be very careful of who is going to be the governance. And if you take just the term of governance, and if anybody has watched Sound of Music, right? You had a governor, and the woman was the governor. She could control all the children, but it was her job to take the message of the master, the man of the house, to control and build that. But she also had a lot of autonomy. Well, she took a lot of autonomy to create an environment for the children that was different than what he wanted, right? So as a society, we can define what are those rules of governance that we want. Do we want to have a strict governance, or do we want to have a lax governance? Do we want to have free electoral, which, we already know that the electoral is somewhat corrupt or can be. But is there a way that we can go back to an easy acceptance of who's going to be doing what leader? Because we do still need leadership. Responsibility is good, too. But we still have to have leaders. And the military leadership, we had a lot of different ways. The Air Force is very structured, very high level. The Army is, when you're out there and the bullets are flying, you make the decision. It's up to you. We're not going to control you at all. So society has to decide in what areas are the best governed frameworks going to work the best, because there's not just one that's going to work, overall.
And here I also see that transparency is very much important, right? Because then the society decides, takes a decision that these people will be the leaders, and how can then society really check that everything what is important to be implemented is being implemented? Then the transparency is important. So I think we need platforms that these transparent information will be available to every member of a society.
And I think that's important. Transparency comes up a lot, but what does it really mean? Because it's too much information is too much information. That's why it's called too much. I don't want to know everything. I don't want to be totally transparent. Some people will want to know and read and understand it, so making it available is there. But we shouldn't have the expectation that everybody knows that it's transparent, because not all of us are going to read. Every personality is slightly different. Whether or not we use the DISC or the Myers-Briggs or any kind of personality, everything is always shifted. And the motivations for people are different. Sort of like an equalizer. My balance for who I am is there. If Alex comes in and moves one, or my job moves it somewhere else, and I no longer have the ability to grow, I feel it. I know that I'm not who I am or who I should be. So I'm going to use all my energy to go and learn. But somebody else may not have that. They may have a very, very high certainty that they have to have everything. I'm an entrepreneur. On a scale of 1 to 10, mine's about a 4. I don't need security. But somebody else may be up at a 9, and they go, but I need a house. I need a steady income. I need all of these, because that is what their equilibrium is. And this is where the governance has to say, it's not just one person. You have millions of individuals, but what is the consensus of what's out of balance? And then when somebody finds that they're out of balance, they take the ability to respond and say, I'm out of balance. It's a growth. Let me talk to my boss. Can you give me something that is going to increase my growth? But once we get that awareness, then we can communicate it a little bit easier without stress and therapists and everything else.
True, and I think then we will come to the simplicity. Our communication and all the systems will be simpler. I mean, high developed, but at the same time simpler.
It could be. I mean, we went from analog to digital to mass, and we can send messages out very quickly. Unfortunately, algorithms are controlling these messages. We need to find a way of getting messages out, or maybe even working with Zuckerberg and Google and others to say, how can we manufacture the message and get the positive messages out to those people? And it's very interesting to look at the algorithms that they're doing in AI, and a lot of my friends are PhDs in AI, and I'm posing the same question. Can we proactively predict movements? And if we can, just from the big data, then we can say what message does that movement need to either increase it or, I don't want to say control it, but
Yeah.
it is, because it's maybe not a message that is conducive to what we really need.
And what I really like about the project Creative Society, in this project we always say we, because we talk about what is good for all of us. And I wanted also to ask you, what is your opinion about the importance of such a project as Creative Society nowadays?
I think we need more. And within my network, I'm seeing more and more people who want to do something very similar, that they want to reach millions of people, because social media has now made this a tangible idea. And 5 years ago, we didn't have that, and we're seeing the influx. So a lot of times the good and the bad has to be evaluated. Yes, it's bad that somebody can influence the U.S. elections. But I put on my, innovation hat and going, wow, if we can do that, why can't we influence this? Why can't I take my message and get it out? And I just chatted with, he calls himself Mr. Move It. And it's the same thing. I said, look, let's have a Zoom call. I'll talk to you about Creative Society. I'll talk to you about Wheels of Humanity, and say, how can you take your message to enable people and help them to a much higher level? Because it is. And as we get more and more people together, it's not just Mr. Move It, myself, yourself. It's 1,000 people in 180 countries that can do this.
Yeah.
And once you get that motivation that motivates them, you can influence them to take another action. Then that action can lead to, the wheels just keep rolling all over the place.
But I really like this the higher level, because we all need this evolution, like peaceful and powerful evolution of our society, a higher level for all of us. And we are testing the theory of 6 handshakes.
Okay.
And this is a theory according to which all of us know each other through 5 or fewer social connections only. And when we started to test this theory, we came to the understanding with that contemporary technology, they bring us to 1 or 2 connections only to reach out to any person. And I would like to ask you, who you would like to nominate for the interview about Creative Society? Who will be the next guest of our show?
I would think that you need to hit, and because I haven't seen everybody that you have the list, but I would put 3 different type of personalities on here. Take someone who is at the very, very high level of quantum physics, who's really looking at how does quantum physics in this physical world match into the quantum of the consciousness, right? And there's several of them that are out there. Where I'm looking at doing the PhD is Quantum University. So there's several doctors and PhDs who are trying to do this, right? So that's easy enough to come in. Second, I would take a look at some of the spiritual leaders that are out there, out of India, who are already out there, right? That they have a following, and they know for 30, 40 years that they're out there. See, Guru is one of them that is very there. Get an interview from him and say, okay, well, what is it? And then I would put somebody who can counter. When I was studying and teaching economics, there's a lot of things that are, in your principles that need to be. Be honest enough to open up that dialogue to critics. Interview some critics in a very structured way so that you can get that feedback and find out, how do we do it? So I use very often a process from De Bono. So it's Edward De Bono and the lateral thinking hats, where in a table you can have people who are for you, against you, totally, compliant not to do anything. But you facilitate this in a very structured, not yelling, screaming, but you sit down and have these different. So even have a panel where you're doing that, but you're really asking the right questions and you're getting the emotions out, the red hat. You're getting the facts, the white hat. You're allowing people to say, this isn't going to work. Fine, black hat, that's okay. And then, but giving these three, what's creative? What can we do about it? And everybody tributes into their green. And then you put it into a practical, where's the next step tomorrow? If we meet on Friday and Monday morning, what are 3 actions that we need to do? The yellow hat, what's really practical? Doesn't mean you've ignored everything else. It just means let's come up with some kind of practical.
That's true. We need a dialogue because the dialogue about creative society should start all over the globe nowadays, because only all together we can come to building a creative society. It cannot be built without a single person living in this world, because it's a society for everyone.
Yeah, and it's a society that we're going to have pushback. So a lot of the innovations that are disruptive, you get pushback. The pharmaceutical isn't going to like you. The government isn't going to like you. Big business isn't going to like you. They don't want to hear that you're developing a community that could basically ignore them. And, but bring them to the table.
Yeah,
Get
absolutely.
them to criticize. And you'll find that a lot of executives, even though they're very, very high, well-educated and working in the commercial world, they're a human. And they have a heart. And they have family. And they've gone through the same problems. And a lot of my clients, when I do hypnosis, they're stressed out. They have forgotten about their family. They've prioritized their growth and their commitments over the family. And, is that really where they want? No.
No.
And this is why, take a look at the midlife crisis. There's a reason for it. Because they're at that stage of, there's something that I'm missing.
Exactly.
I've gone through all this external, doing this because my mom wants to and my dad wants me to, but that's not me. Let's find out at that age, the midlife level, what would you change? And they will speak. I'm pretty certain that they will speak loud.
I'm sure, because everyone wants to be happy, and we know it for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to mention, that when we take a look at love and happiness, right? One of the best studies that is out there outside of, what do you think it is the Harvard University, right? So they've done an 80-year, I think it's now 80 years of study of all the successful graduates of what do they consider happiness. And it was very blunt. Happiness is love, period.
Yep. What else to say? So thank you
Nothing else.
so much, Philip, for being today with us. What would you wish for our viewers?
To find yourself, love yourself, and then share that love with others.
Thank you so much.
And we have one question from the audience.
Uh-oh.
How can we inform all people around the world about creative society in 52 weeks?
Somebody's read my site. When you want to try to break it down, is we know that technology is there. What I try to tell some of my students when they want to launch a product is, go out there and look at the most popular sites. Take a look at the most popular Facebook groups. Get involved with them. Find the commonality, and then show that commonality into it. Take one of the principles and say, hey, this group would do that. We can reach literally 400 million people doing this. Now, you do a phased approach of saying, okay, here's the list, here's the top 10. How do we get that message? You get some media experts that are out there, and you say, what's the message? And the message should really be very, very specific, and this is very well known, is use the think, feel, do. What you want them to think, what you want them to feel, and what do you want them to do. And when you make this message very clear, you can navigate all of these groups. You can get that feedback, and yes, you can get it done in 52 weeks, and you can get 52 million people targeted that way.
Thank you so much.
And I guess we'll have one more last question. Philip, what makes you happy, and what advice can you give to people to go to bed happy and wake up happy?
Very easy. What makes me happy is the ability every morning to wake up before the sun, do my prayers, meditate without any other distractions, and know myself. To know what it is that I'm really focusing on, so my equilibrium of my human needs are in balance, and when I feel a conflict that morning, to address it. Not let it go for 2 or 3 months, but know that I need to address it. If I can't that day, then put it on the list so that I can do it the next day. And then at night, it's the same thing. You take a look at, with all of your obligations, and you say, what did I do that made me imbalanced? So it's more of a balance check. And then if I'm out of balance, make a decision. Can I do that tomorrow? Do I have to do it today? Is it an immediate action? And if not, put it off. And then I always, not always, but almost, try to put into my brain, what does my subconscious need to work on? Because we have 6 to 8 hours that our subconscious will do our work for us. If I want to have a creative solution, I just ask the question, subconscious, what do I need to know for tomorrow morning to have a solution to this problem? And you'll be amazed that your body will respond. But it's really, if you don't do that, your body's going to tell you have an imbalance. So it's really about this, do I have an imbalance? If so, address it. If not, when I wake up and you have a bad dream, that's your subconscious telling you something. So that's, I think, the answer to how do you do it morning and evening.
Thank you so much. Dear friends, it's very easy to join the project Creative Society. Find the red button Join Us, click it, choose a language you speak, answer 1 or 3 questions, and just leave your email for the volunteers of Alatra International Public Movement, the members of the project Creative Society, and we will contact you. Stay tuned, and if you want to share this show in your social media networks, don't forget to use 2 hashtags. First, hashtag Alatra Unites, and second, hashtag Creative Society. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you, Philip.
You're welcome. Bye.